Skyrim is a computer game that I have been playing on and off since the day it was released, on the 11th of November 2011. It is a fairly typical adventure game where you, the lone protagonist, must kill all the baddies, explore all the dungeons in the ancient ruins, slay all the dragons, etc, etc. There are a few helpful souls who will come along for the ride occasionally, but the vast majority of folk you meet have very little to contribute besides a few lines of dialogue and a bit of window dressing. The famous NPC. The game is very dated in its graphics and its mechanics, and if you don't use a bit of imagination, the limitations of this virtual world quickly become apparent. But, forgiven its quirks, Skyrim can be an engrossing experience indeed. I watch many YouTubers who are delving into the subliminal and not so subliminal messages hidden in modern blockbuster movies and television shows. Through their insight, they are revealing information about humanity's transition from one state of awareness to another, which has been increasing in intensity for some time now, and is said to be reaching some sort of climax on the winter solstice of 2019. A lot of this kind of information is right there in the movies, whether intentionally placed or not, awaiting its decoding by those with the eyes to see. I appreciate people who do this kind of legwork and then break it down for others like me, because some years ago now I lost all interest in movies and television. I lost all interest in computer games also, with the exception of just one. The thing about spirit is that it can turn literally anything to its advantage. Even in a world as upside down as ours, if you can bring enough of the light of your consciousness to something, that thing, no matter how damaged, broken or unhelpful, can and will be transmuted to pure light itself. And so, having invested in a second-hand games console during a moment of wanting to rediscover part of my misspent youth, rather than see it as something which detracts from my spiritual growth and then just chuck the thing back on eBay, which I've done at least twice in the past, I'm going to turn it to my advantage this time, and use Skyrim as a way to teach myself about the true nature of the illusory physical experience, the illusion of separateness, the nature of the individual as a single point of consciousness in an infinite sea of awareness, and the personal journey towards enlightenment. All computer programs are made from code. A game is just a very visually appealing computer program, imitating the real-world environment perhaps, or some fantastic reimagining of it. The same source code that animates my illusory foes is the same code which generates the water and the trees, the same code which generates my avatar in the game. This code was created by unknown beings in a higher dimension for a purpose unbeknownst to a humble medieval warrior just trying to keep his feet dry and find a set of armour that fits properly. To us, the game player, we understand that the programmers designed and built all of this just for us, for our experience and our enjoyment. Even the harsh weather conditions and apparently fearsome foes are there to be enjoyed. Indeed, no true harm can ever come to us, sat comfortably on our beds or sofas outside of the dimension of the game. It is our projected avatar which undertakes these epic journeys. Behind the code, however, is a timeless and limitless expanse of grey nothingness, into which the world is rendered piece by piece during a loading screen, before we enter. This is an undeniable metaphor for the mysteries being explored through quantum physics as scientists now delve into the metaphysical maze, long since the domain of philosophers, poets and theologians asking, what ultimately underlies physical reality? And the further they go, the more they come up with nothing. The atoms which, since their discovery almost a century ago, have been reckoned to be the building blocks of our universe, are now believed literally to be predominantly composed of nothing. Just like the polygons and textures which compose the world of Skyrim are ultimately nothing. A lot of the time my character is preoccupied with becoming the greatest warrior, exploring the world or collecting vast wealth to store in his impregnable house. Ego stuff. But he is unwillingly called upon by a group of shadowy robed figures to follow a path of righteousness and self-sacrifice, as he is the only one gifted with the so-called dragon blood, which allows him to meet the imminent threat of the newly resurrected dragons plaguing the land. The one man or woman alone, at least at first seemingly alone, against all odds, is a common plot device in such stories, and with good reason. As the higher self of this warrior character, I exist in a higher dimension with far more knowledge of the situation than he possesses. I have access to the quest log and an interactive map of the entire world. I have completed many of these quests in past incarnations. He must sometimes think himself insane as he scales impossibly steep mountainsides, slips into sub-zero waters and delves into pitch-dark dungeons filled with gods know what. But the higher self knows, and the higher self has always got our back. Conveniently, the character always finds what he is looking for down there in the darkness, and if he dies, the higher self just reloads a save and tries again. There is nothing to fear. It's basically a dead cert that he's going to achieve his ultimate goal and save the world from certain doom. And because he's the protagonist, the scripted events in the game cannot take place without his presence, so there's no rush either. It's almost as if time doesn't really function linearly in this virtual world. Thoughts such as these have been present in my mind for many years, but until I decide to make a YouTube video about something, the concept rarely coagulates into anything with practical value. On occasion, since working on the script for this video, I've found myself in waking reality playing with the idea that this is a simulation just like Skyrim is, and I am the protagonist, the one for which scripted events occur as and when they are designed by unknown entities in higher dimensions. And if I give myself up to the will of the higher self holding my controller, so to speak, things will work out differently, to say the least. I'm not saying I think I'm a robot though, quite the opposite in fact. To act always on one's self-generated impulses, that is the so-called NPC behaviour. That is what it means to be a part of the simulation and a robot. To connect with the higher self is to become one with it, to access more of our true potential as trans-dimensional beings, to become truly a free agent acting in the world. This line of reasoning raises an interesting question. Is an atheist one who disbelieves due to a lack of empirical evidence in higher selves holding controllers in higher dimensions? Is that atheist incapable then of becoming a protagonist in their own story? Limited to forever being an NPC? I believe not. Even the most devout atheist could be acting under full supervision of their higher self, they're just unaware of it. A supra-dimensional creator consciousness is no more concerned with being recognised and accepted by its individuated mind-bound selves than I am with being recognised by my Skyrim avatar. What I now understand is that it is possible to become aware of this connection to a higher thought, something I can surrender my own will to in order to become an agent for genuine change in my own life and in the world at large. And why would I not want to explore this possibility? It can only lead to positive consequences for myself and for all those whose stories come into contact with my own. It can only open me up to more of my own potential and resolution for the seemingly insurmountable issues which I've been unable to make sense of in my former state of consciousness.